Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the GMS part number M100D is what this is. Trying to get the camera to focus on that a little bit better. M100D in a 26D. This is a replacement mortise cylinder, but this is a dummy mortise cylinder. And dummy mortise cylinders are almost never used in new construction. Although I have supplied them when when an architect or a specifier's had them on the hardware set, I questioned, why are these there? You have lock sets, less cylinder, but you're asking for dummy cylinders. And the question or the answer has come back. It might be a classroom lock. We know that we need to have passage sets. We're not sure about classroom locks. And I've had people tell me, we're going to set the classroom locks into passage mode, and then we're going to install dummy cylinders. And if in the future we wanted to add key control, we could easily add a cylinder. And I said, well, okay, sure, that works. Admittedly, I'm not sure of the code implications of having a lock in certain applications that may be able to be locked. Technically, it's capable of locking, so you might want to think about that. But in almost all instances, when someone orders this, it's to correct an error or to fill a hole, basically. And dummy cylinders will be ordered when there is an aluminum storefront door on a restaurant, bar, tavern, a shop, anything. And there's currently a cylinder on the inside. Well, under the duress of inspection, the inspector will say, hey, that cylinder needs to go. It can't be there. That's an emergency exit. And according to, standards and established code, yep, that's absolutely correct. Occasionally, the inspector will permit a cylinder like this to blank the hole off. Sometimes they'll demand an exit device on the door, but that is based on occupancy. Depending on what code you're referring to, it'll either be a 50 people or 100 people. If it's a tiny shop and your occupancy couldn't be 50, they may say, pull that out and I'll be satisfied with a blank. Or I've even seen it agreed. I was in a local diner restaurant known for a certain type of food, and the occupancy was certainly, I don't know that it would have taken 50, but it could have, I suppose. Probably not. But the inspector permitted a cylinder on the inside, but then a decal above the door, this door to remain unlocked during business hours, which we sell that decal. And that is, actually, that sort of signage is actually in standard as well, NFPA 101 standard. It's in there. So sometimes you'll see that. But dummy cylinders are really used to fill a hole that was not meant to be drilled originally. You might drill the cylinder hole on the wrong side of the door, or the aluminum storefront. The doors that you have on interior passageways are not fire rated. They don't require anything other than push and pull, but somehow they came to the job with holes for cylinders. So a dummy cylinder comes to the rescue. This is a M100, Mortise 100. The 100 is going to refer to 1 inch. Now, mortise cylinders are measured from the back side of the hole. Pardon me. Mortise cylinders are measured from the underside of the head to where the back of the cam would be. There's no cam on this, so there's no cam to measure to, but it would still be called a 1 inch. But this actually measures about 7/8 because it's missing that cam. Okay, so be mindful of that. This is in a 26D finish. There is a peel-away protective film on the face of that satin chrome unit. There is information down below in the extended description that states 1 inch length, non-hollow solid brass construction, and exact threads. This would be considered 1 inch. This is a piece of solid brass with a brass scalp plate. Exact threads. Okay, sure. This is a 1 5/32 diameter, 32 threads per inch. Standard thread type for mortise cases. going back at least a century. I don't know when that thread type was common, but for sure, I would even be tempted to say that it goes back to, the Civil War era, because mortise lock bodies that would have taken, I'm not sure when Yale had mortise cases with mortise cylinders in their pin tumbler cylinders. I'd have to, my oldest catalog only goes to 1884, and I'm quite sure they're in there, and I do very much believe it's a 32 thread per inch, 1.157, I think is what that technically is. Okay. Now there is some supporting documentation with this item, so let's switch to the screen view and take a look. Now here is the item that we are looking at online, this GMS 1-inch mortise dummy cylinder. And the link to the manufacturer's page as seen here is where we can see additional information. The product catalog is what I'm really driving at. So if we were to search for M100D, we're going to get to the page where that is initially found, and other pages where it occurs. Let's take a look. So it shows up on their page 9 in a listing of how to order. So they'll do a 15/16, a 1-inch, and an 1 1/8, as well as an 1 1/4. And be mindful the length of the body itself is going to be about 1/8 of an inch less. It then shows up on their page 10, okay, showing you what those dummy mortise cylinders look like. The 1.36 is a diameter of the exterior face. This diameter, which is, the head of the cylinder, but also wrapped with the scalp plate. Those 4 lengths are also listed. Back to the first instance, finishes. Now they can do all these different finishes. In my experience, they don't stock all these finishes, and the lead time can prove to be excessive on certain GMS cylinders because of the lack of inventory. They're just not stocked in most finishes. Satin chrome, certainly. Oil rub bronze is generally stocked, etc. But when you're dealing with a D or a dummy cylinder, you would not therefore have a cam either. Okay, so the third time it shows up is on that same page. We get down to page 11, and supposed to be a reference to it here somewhere. I don't see it. Then back to yeah. So there's obviously something's triggering, locating that on those pages, but it's really pages 9 and 10 where you need to look at in terms of the dummy cylinders. Now, the nice thing about GMS's catalog is it will give you a review of all things GMS cylinder related, and they're quite comprehensive in their offering when it comes to cylinders of all variants, mortise and rim, thumb turn, ADA compliant thumb turns as you see here. They get into these thumb turns, and I like their thumb turn. It's a bit more elegant, a bit more graceful, and they have this ADA compliant thumb turn as well. Cams for their mortise cylinders. Other accessories such as cylinder collars and then threaded rings are available as well. Rim cylinders. This is a dummy rim cylinder. Same scenario. You might need to just close off a hole, basically. And, putting in a dummy cylinder is sometimes the least inelegant way to do that. Rim cylinder accessories are here. They're going to get into cylinders, key and knob, key and lever, deadbolt cylinders, small format, interchangeable cores they have. Large format. This is a large format. That would certainly be Schlage, is what this large format is, because of the retaining pin that's here. Yale has a control key that has a it's just a longer control key blank. It has a disc though, not a pin. That would be a Schlage large format. Replaces Schlage. There it is, right there. Schlage large format, a schematic of that. Rim cylinder housings for small format. Pardon me, mortise cylinder housings, thin head and tapered head. Large format. Now they'll do large format housings for Corbin, Sargent, Schlage, Yale, and Medico. Those are all going to be different figure 8 preparations. Schematics on that material. It's all modular, so you can swap out, cams and whatnot. Although, I mean, you could certainly order a Schlage, mortise cylinder housing and then certainly put onto it an Adams-Rite cam or a Yale cam. I supply Schlage cylinders for Yale mortise locks. I have supplied that in the past. Other, hybrid, putting, one manufacturer's lock with another manufacturer's cylinder is not unheard of at all. And in fact, because you're so able to do that, it really gives, I think, a greater amount of freedom to the end user to decide, independent of the lock manufacturer, the keying system that you'd like to have. I mean, let's face it, you may have an existing system that is Medico, but they don't offer much in the way of mortise locks, if you follow my meaning. So you are very likely going to use someone else's mortise case along with housings that will accept Medico cylinders, or you'll order mortise cylinders, Medico mortise cylinders, and then use them on your Yale or Sargent lock bodies. Interchangeable core rim cylinders, schematics again. European style cylinders, these are shown, these should be tipped over on its end. These are not installed this way, they're installed 180 degrees opposite. This would be called a Euro cylinder. We would call it a profile, or European cylinder, a profile cylinder. In Europe, the profile cylinder is incredibly common. Certainly common in Great Britain as well, but they have a different cylinder type that's very common there. But throughout Europe, you'll be able to buy quite exotic, in terms of high security systems, in this Euro profile. You can get quite fascinating cylinder construction when it comes to high security. Dom is a name that comes to mind. A very intriguing, ingenious high security system. You can certainly buy that material if you had, we're going to see profile cylinders in American patio door manufacturers, and they're nice because they will permit a very narrow backset lock set. So if you have sliding or swinging patio doors that have very small styles, say 2-inch, you're not going to install traditional American hardware on there. You'll use something of this smaller footprint. But if you wanted to have high security, you could certainly swap that cylinder out completely and go with some boutique style, what I would consider a boutique manufacturer when it comes to what we do here in the United States. Lots of people will make that stuff. It'll take some research. Schematics, you do, like I said, you do occasionally bump into requirements for this material. Padlocks, etc. Back to the manufacturer's page. That will allow you to see not only all of the GMS products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website and a link to the full product catalog. Let's finish up this video on camera. Now, in conclusion, the quality of the GMS cylinder is very good. I wouldn't hesitate to use their material, but I would also not count on the entire product line or even a reasonable percentage of it being available to ship quickly. They're not the primary, or they're not the largest cylinder manufacturer with the deepest market penetration, but very high quality. I would not hesitate to use the material provided I could get the material when I needed it. So be mindful to check inventory before you order. But your common stuff, your inch, 1.1/8, 1.25, 1-inch dummy cylinders, regular rim cylinders, that stuff's kept on hand, especially in satin chrome. Any questions on the GMS M100D in a US26D finish or any other GMS product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.